Now, I'm never going to tell you that data is bad or that data is not useful or you shouldn't pay attention to data. I'm never going to tell you any of that. Well, in this video, I'm going to make the case that actually data can hold you back, and over-reliance on data can hold you back and can make you blind to the true dynamics of your business. My name is Olly Richards. I'm the founder of StoryLearning.com. It's a multi-million-dollar online education business. I'm also a mentor and advisor to other online education entrepreneurs. And this all comes back to a conversation I was having recently with a friend of mine who was trying to figure out his customer acquisition strategies, lead gen strategy. And he is a data guy. And so he was going out and trying lots of different methods for growing his business. And he wanted to know which traffic sources were resulting in customers. It's a good question to ask. Well, where do my customers actually come from? And he'd have various different methods that he'd been testing over the years. And he'd want to track all of these things. So he would look to see, okay, if I get a customer from this place, or we get a lead from this place, when do they convert into a customer? Or he would be asking, when I get a customer, where did they initially come from? And because he's a data guy, he would be looking at the sources of these leads and he'd be wanting to track. But the problem was, of course, that people don't always convert straight away. Sometimes, depending on the business that you're running, people might convert on day 1, day 30, year 1, year 2, year 5. This happens all the time. But my friend insisted on wanting to track data. And sure enough, when my friend looked at the different sources of his customers, he would see this. He would see some people sign up straight away, some people sign up after 30 days, and some people would sign up after 2 years. And these customers were equally profitable. And so what do you do when you know that you have a customer who will convert in 2 years? Do you still invest in that lead right now, even though you know a customer is going to convert 2 years later? The data analysis gets really tricky because consultants and coaches will have you analyze your data until you're blue in the face and figure out, what is your LTV, what's your average time to conversion to customer, all of this stuff. And there's like a robotic insistence on data, which is useful in certain circumstances, especially if you're a direct response business with a short sales cycle. But in a lot of businesses with longer sales cycles, then this really stops working because you have a very low sample size and your data is all over the place. And that's just the reality of it. And so if you try to use that data to make data-driven decisions, you end up tying yourself in all kinds of knots. My friend's thought process was this: if I want to scale my business, I have to have a reliable customer acquisition strategy. I have to have data that proves reliably where people come from and how long they take to convert. And then once I find that, then I can invest into it and I'll be scaling to the moon. And this is traditional scaling theory. But this only works in an environment where you've got a high degree of control. But this becomes a lot more difficult when you have a smaller market size, where people often take a long time to convert, and that is down to factors like relationship and timing and things like this. The data cannot be extrapolated and scaled up ad infinitum. And so a lot of small businesses find themselves in these situations. They look at large companies and they try and model the scaling behavior of these large companies, but they realize it just doesn't work for them because they're playing a more modest game. We can work with big market dynamics, or do we stay as a smaller boutique operation making a few million in revenue because this is the place that we like to be and life is just nicer this way. And most people end up in the latter of these categories. So my friend ends up basically chasing his tail, spinning his wheels, because he can't figure out how to execute on this data-driven strategy. It's a little bit like deciding you want to learn a new language and then turning up to class on day 1, discovering, actually it's kind of hard learning this grammar and this vocabulary, so I'm going to quit. And then next week you go and try a different language and you realize on day 1, actually, yeah, it's kind of hard. And then you quit and you never actually make progress in any. Whereas in reality, all you needed to do was decide on the language that's best for you to learn and then just stick with it. And so what is the equivalent of sticking with it in a situation like this? Well, I was chatting with my friend and I gave him the example of how I run my business brand, which is this brand right here, and how I treat lead generation and customer acquisition. And while I do look at the data, and data has a role, that doesn't really govern how I reinvest into the business. In my business brand, I operate with one very simple belief, which is that the true value of my brand is audience. 100% of my customers come from my audience. And so if there's one thing that I know that I need to reinvest into, it is, guess what? Yes, 10 points. Audience, exactly. And you can try and track the data here. You can try and run all kinds of algorithms on it. But fundamentally, you never really know where your customers are going to come from. And now you can try and take a very data-led approach to this, and you can try and grow exactly the right audience in exactly the right way and spend half your life doing this. Or you can say, I know that my audience is the true asset in my business, and so I'm just going to invest liberally into audience growth, because I know that over time this will convert into an asset that is worth far more than whatever I pay for it. Now, there are different ways to pay for audience. You can go and you can buy ads from Mark Zuckerberg. You can go and create YouTube videos. You can spend on paid traffic, you can spend on content, or you can just do it all yourself with sweat equity. It should all factor into the calculation of how much you actually reinvest into audience. But it is the reinvesting into audience. It's pretty much the only thing that I think about. And I do it through all of these means. I have this YouTube channel, I do paid advertising, I go on podcasts and things like that. But my thought process is not how do I reverse engineer the sources of my last 20 clients and figure out how to get more of them. I'm basically just thinking, my belief is that audience is my core value, and so I want to be reinvesting 30 to 50% of revenue back into audience, because that is, on a simple level, my customer acquisition strategy. It is the equivalent of deciding to learn a new language, and even though it's really difficult on day one and even week one or month one, I stick at it and I just keep doing it regularly, because I know that consistency is what's going to help me learn that language in the long run. And the big benefit of thinking this way is it just strips out all the complexity. It stops you running around like a headless chicken, looking at data and endless spreadsheets and trying to figure out ways of hacking your audience growth. It just gives you one very, very simple heuristic with which to grow your business. Because it's simple, because it's clean, that then just gives you the headspace to go and work on other areas of your business, like product development, like team building, or just taking time off and doing whatever the hell you want to do. And it's these kind of mindset tricks that can really make the difference between business being easy and fun, or you driving yourself insane. And if you'd like to see all the different mindset tricks that I use on a regular basis when I'm thinking about business, and you can watch this video over here, which is all about $10 million mindset.